Hello everyone, I'm Leah Toms from the marketing team and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, How Mature is Your Certificate Lifecycle Management? With the surge in digital certificate usage and also progressively shrinking certificate lifespans, security teams need to take control of certificate lifecycle management. And we at Sectigo have developed a CLM maturity model designed to help you understand your level of CLM maturity. Today we have Jason Soroko, Senior Fellow, and Tim Callan, Chief Compliance Officer here today to help prepare you for a crypto agile future. For any questions you may have, please use the question box in the panel. We'll try and answer as many questions as we can at the end. And with that, I'll pass you over into the capable hands of Jason and Tim.
Thank you, Leah. Tim Callan here. How you doing today, Jason?
Doing great, Tim.
All right. So, yeah, we wanna talk about the CLM maturity model. And before we get into this, one of the things I think that it's good to think about is we talk to a lot of people about certificate automation and CLM and these words that kind of flock together in a constellation. I think it's good to acknowledge and recognize, and maybe we don't do enough of this, that there are multiple levels of accomplishment in certificate automation and CLM, and there are multiple degrees to which any given organization may be considering themselves mature. So it's not a black and white thing. It's not an on or off switch. It's actually a series of different levels of capability, right?
Absolutely, Tim. And it has to do with you've probably heard Tim and I talk about the pillars of certificate lifecycle management in the past. And I would
Right.
say this is almost like a part two of that to try to make you guys aware of the capabilities that are typically out there in the real world, all the way from, of course, those of you who still might be using spreadsheets to manage
Hmm.
your certificates, which is essentially an unmanaged certificate. And to start peel the layers of the onion of what are some of the things you get with certificate lifecycle management, and where are some of you in terms of your non-management of certificates, because there are some subtleties to it. I think people are not aware that there are certain aspects to managing a certificate where if you're doing certain things in isolation, it's still not a fully managed certificate and it is lower in the maturity model. And we're going to help to really peel those layers of the onion and show you what those things are and show you what a fully mature uh, managed certificate is.
Yeah, and so I think for starters, this slide is just sort of explaining why we would want CLM at all. CLM stands for Certificate Lifecycle Management. It is the category name for what we sometimes just refer to as certificate automation. And the basic idea is that you have a platform that will monitor and perform actions for you and give reports and visibility and whatnot for the certificates that you have in your environment. And there's a lot more detail underneath that, but at a high level, that's what we're getting. And like certificate automation and certificate agility really is more important than it's ever been before, right, Jason?
It is more important than it ever was. And I think even, at the very top, when we were here talking about, we already mentioned two things that I think are very, very important. And that is the proliferation of certificates. I'm at the point, Tim, and I think you are too,
Hmm.
where a lot of organizations don't even realize across their organization all the different places,
Yeah.
certainly where they're using any form of cryptographic asset. I'm almost starting on the right-hand side of the slide where that informs, are have you taken full inventory to understand the quantum threat? But that proliferation means that more certificates are in more places in your enterprise than ever. And you might even in just the one use case of publicly trusted certificates, you might not be aware of all of the publicly trusted certificates that you have in your organization, which increases the risk of outage. Um, and of course, if we're then starting to add in the dimension of more frequent renewals, due to shorter certificate lifespans, which of course is a good thing from a security standpoint,
Hmm.
that increases the proliferation of certificates that are going through your organization. All of that leads to the left-hand side of the slide, which of course is more risk of outages. And Tim, there's all sorts of risk of outages, not the
Yeah.
least of which is misissuance by CAs, key compromise, and of course the shorter certificate lifespans that we're facing. These are
Yeah.
all drivers for
Well,
you
and
can't,
probably the biggest culprit is expiring certs that don't get renewed.
Tim, that's it. And due to the proliferation, due to the shorter certificate life cycle, due to all the things mentioned above, it all leads to that extreme risk of outages, and you just can't. I mean, I don't think any organization can really
Right.
afford any form of downtime due to certificate outages right now. And unfortunately, you and I, Tim, are still reporting in our other media
Yeah.
the kinds of outages that we're seeing out in the world right now, both from a public and private standpoint. It's it just seems to be ubiquitous still, and it's due to the lack of certificate lifecycle management.
Right. Yes. And the last thing about outages before we move on is one of the things where a lot of enterprises have transformed really in the last 10 years is not only is everything digital, but everything is interwoven. And so the the old idea of an isolated outage where something stops working and that thing stops working is becoming less and less common because what happens is there's more and more digital dependencies. So if one system goes down, there tend to be downstream effects. And you can have other systems going down later because they're not getting what they need or entire processes stopping. And so the average impact of an outage on the business is going up because there's much more interdependency. And when you pull out one tent pole, you have this tendency for the entire tent to fall, which makes it worse. And as it says at the bottom here, CLM solves all of these problems. Um, and you mentioned lifespans getting shorter, Jason. They definitely are, aren't they?
They definitely are, Tim, and I think I can definitely defer to you in terms of your work within Cab Forum and other parts of the web PKI and compliance. This slide is more conceptual, but
Hmm.
I think that it's important to note that shorter certificate lifespans are inevitable, and there's a really good reason for it. And that
Yeah.
is all the things we talked about earlier, things such as CA misissuance, things such as key compromise, all of those sorts of things that might lead to you as a user of certificates might need to have to replace those certificates. Well, if you have shorter certificate lifespans, the risks associated with key compromise, misissuance, etc., are greatly, greatly reduced. And
Absolutely.
Tim, it might be worth for this audience talking about the reason why we have 90 days specifically and 10-day certificate listed on this deck.
Yeah, so 90 days is the eventual coming maximum term for a public TLS certificate, an SSL certificate, as we say. And that the Chrome root program has announced its intention to drive certificate lifespans, maximum lifespan for TLS cert down to 90 days. And the reason for that is that because shorter term certs are just fundamentally safer and more agile. They also want to have a closer marriage of domain name ownership to certificate ownership. And you get all of those things by reducing certificate lifespans. And so that's something that they're driving for. We also recently saw an announcement by Mozilla that is contemplating selectively imposing maximum 90-day limits on certain domain names under certain circumstances. And so all of this is driving toward this 90-day cap. The 10-day column is interesting because there is presently a CA browser forum rule that states that any certificate that is less than 10 days in duration does not need to have revocation information associated with it. So that cert does not need to have CRL. It does not need to be an OCSP. So this can be compelling as a motivator to eliminate overheads and increase speed performance. And it's something that's available for CAs to offer. We can't do it now because there is still a requirement in the Microsoft Root program that every certificate have OCSP. But we do expect that that requirement will go away eventually. And when it does, the decks are cleared for CAs to offer a revocation-free sub 10-day certificate. And so when you look at all of these things together, what we see is a clear and inevitable drive to shorter certificate lifespans. Just a few years ago, you could get a 3-year SSL certificate. In the last 5 years, SSL has gone from 3 years to 1. Code signing has gone from anything to 3 years. SMIME has gone from anything to 3 years down to 2. So all of these are collapsing their maximum term. And this is coming. It's not even a question. It's just a question of how fast it comes.
Thanks, Tim. I think it might be worth mentioning, of course, the term ephemeral certificates on the far right-hand
Yeah.
side. I think this more has relations to the fact that in the private world, Tim, we have seen through DevOps and other forms of authentication use cases where private certificate authorities are used, it is increasingly common to see certificates that merely last as long as the actual authentication cycle. So sometimes hours, minutes, or even seconds. And that's a very short certificate lifespan, Tim, and it only works because of some form of certificate lifecycle management.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've probably made this point, right? More certificates, just in general, the amount of things that have certificates on them are going up, right? There's more digital processes. More digital processes means more things that need to have certs. If you digitize everything, which we've all done, more stuff that needs certs. If you expand the amount of processes you have running internally, more certs. Then if you shorten their lifespan, which means that more frequent renewals come, every time a renewal comes, that's a crisis moment, right? Every time a cert expires, if the new renewed cert isn't installed on time correctly, that's a crisis moment. And so with those things going, the risk of outage is just going up and up and up. So with that, let's talk about the maturity model and these levels. So walk us through this chart here. What are we looking at here, Jay?
Thanks, Tim. We're going to go through each level. We're going to have a slide per level. So I'm just going to cover it at a surface level here. But now I think you're getting to see how some of the pillars of CLM, Tim, are being incorporated into
Yeah,
certificate lifecycle management
I
maturity.
see discovery here. I see visibility here. Sure.
So the reason for the ordering is because some of the offerings out there, especially for publicly trusted certificates, kind of follow this order. And I'd like to draw a line in the sand, Tim, to say that if you're using a commercial certificate lifecycle management system, you in the year 2024, where we are right now, should be able to get to level 3 in one
Okay.
fell swoop. Okay, so that's just one
Got
thing
it.
to keep in mind. So level 0, and I hate to say it, but I think a lot of listeners to this webinar might be at level 0. And what that means is if you are using some form of system that is, say, a spreadsheet that is managing your publicly trusted certificates, and you are manually renewing your certificates at what, the 1 year point, 398 days, then
Mm-hmm.
you are at level 0. And what I'd like to say is you can't get to level 1 and you can't get to level 2 until you have, at the very, very least, had some way of actually automatically renewing the certificates or
Mm-hmm.
being able to somehow log into some system and have visibility to the certificates that have been issued to you. And I think that, Tim, if you think about this for a moment, there are systems out in the world today. I think we can name it. Let's Encrypt, for example, will let you get to a level one, because to use a Let's Encrypt certificate,
You
you
need to
you
use
are
Acme.
you're using
Yeah.
Acme. However, you cannot, with Let's Encrypt, log in to an account and see which certificates have been issued to you. In
Right.
other words, Let's Encrypt will not allow you to get to a level two.
Right. Yep. On its
And
own. Let's encrypt on its own.
Let's
Let's
Encrypt
encrypt
by
certificates
itself.
can be part of an environment that gets you there. Absolutely. Yep.
100%. So if you're using Let's Encrypt alone, you probably can say that you have achieved a level one for those specific certificates. And it is a step up from level zero, but what we're trying to show you here on the maturity model is you have not, with Let's Encrypt, achieved level two or level three or beyond.
Yes.
So I think, Tim, we can probably move to the next slide to really drive into, okay, let's talk
Yeah.
about level zero and why do some people choose level zero. And it is typically smaller organizations or larger organizations that really probably have not watched
Yeah.
this webinar or,
Yeah.
or or listened to our podcast, Tim.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and they're benefiting only from the fact that it's cheap and cheerful, right? There's
Hmm.
really there you can handle the certs in any way you like. You can handle them, with spreadsheets. The problem, of course, is you are at the risk of outages that
Yeah.
Tim talked about earlier, and you're missing out on the on mitigating a lot more of the risks that will end up leading to outages. So, Tim, if I'm sure you have some comments about being a level
Yeah.
zero.
I mean, a level zero, I find that a lot of companies that are at level zero, when I talk to the IT managers there, usually there's someone there who gets it, who understands that they have this risk and that this is not the way they want to live, and that just generally they're taking on this unacceptable danger. But usually, what's happening is that person is being trumped by other priorities internally. So someone says, look, I want to put this in place because it's going to make our more systems more robust. It's going to protect us from potential outages and blah, blah, blah. And then they find themselves competing with other things. So perhaps another thing on the roadmap would be we're going to do this new service and we expect it's going to be positively revenue generating. And now you got organizations trying to decide, am I going for a risk reduction play or am I going for a revenue generation play? And oftentimes they choose the other one. So we see that a lot. And I feel like this is organizations that aren't really aren't really coming to grips with how much jeopardy they are in, right? It's like somebody who drives their car without insurance who doesn't really think they might get in an accident, you know? And that's how they are, right? They're not really considering the true danger to the organization, and that's how they wind up making these decisions.
Tim, I'd like to even bring up a very topical example of why we know that a lot of organizations are level zeros, because
Hmm.
you've been reporting a
Yeah,
lot lately on misissuance events within the web
yeah,
PKI, and
yeah.
so many of these organizations have had to say, I can't handle mass revocation and renewal because I'm at level zero maturity.
Absolutely correct, right? And the other point that you make here, Jason, or that you're touching that I think is important, is you can have for a large enterprise, you can have different parts of the enterprise at different levels.
Correct.
So we talk to enterprises who absolutely have automation in place, and maybe that's from us, maybe that's from someone else, but they still have sections of their environment or their business or business units or however they're divided up that are at level 0 and kind of existing at the same time. And it seems crazy, right? But it occurs all the time.
Yeah, I think, Tim, I think in terms of our modern vocabulary, uh, a level 0 maturity is related to having no certificate agility. I
Yes.
think I want to say that way because if you are managing with a spreadsheet your certificates, your ability to answer questions such as, tell me all the certificates you have, you won't be able to do that.
Mm,
You just won't. And
yeah.
that leads to issues where anytime there's any kind of an event where you need to quickly swap out certificates, you're not fully prepared to be able to do it. And there's
Yeah.
many reasons in the entire WebPKI where that could happen. Tim and I have done multitudes of podcasts on this. Look, level 0 has been around for 30 years, and it's time to move away from level 0.
Yes. All right. So level 1.
So, bravo for those of you who have achieved level 1. What you probably have done is you are utilizing an automation technology of some kind. So you have actually been you are now able to claim that during a misissuance event or a key compromise or something going on, you have some level of assurance that you can probably renew those certificates
Yeah.
without an enormous amount of human labor.
Yes.
That's terrific. But what you're missing, at least two other important aspects, if this is only what you have done. And I think when we talk about level 1, it's all about automation. It's all about probably using something like Acme Protocol alone.
Yeah.
And I think the best analogy is for those of you who are using a Let's Encrypt type certificate, because Let's Encrypt gives you automation, but nothing else. Will not give you the other pillars of CLM, will not give you an ability to log into an account and see the certificates that have been issued to you, and will not give you discovery capabilities to see any form of rogue certificate that might be
Yeah.
have been come from somewhere else. Tim, any comments?
Yeah, I think we might probably it's good to clarify that this catch-all term of automation, which is a very useful term, we could break this down into some more detail if we wanted. For instance, there's automated installation, which is different from automated renewal,
Right.
right? Which is different from automated replacement. And so it's also possible to see organizations that are kind of there's almost some sub levels under level 1, right? Where I can install them automatically, but there's no automated renewal and I have to go remember to hit a button to renew them. Or I've got automated renewal, but if I have to replace something out of cycle, now all of a sudden that's a big deal. And we see these things in the real world too, right? So this is good for the level of granularity of this model. I will just point out that inside of your organization, you will find that there are kind of sub stages under level 1. And in fact, once again, different processes or environments or BUs or teams might be at different sub levels of level 1.
Tim, that's an important point, and that's why we put automation as
Yeah,
level 1,
yeah,
because it is the absolute first stepping stone away from being that huge mass of people who live at level 0.
yeah,
Some form of granularity of automation is what gets you somewhere into level 1, the very,
right.
very first step.
Yeah, yeah. And the primary benefit, as it says, down at the bottom under your steps to level 2, right? We see this phrase risk management, right? So risk getting to automation level 1 definitely reduces your risk considerably. It also reduces human error or human manual labor time. It makes you more efficient. And everybody likes the efficiency, but I still think the risk reduction is the best benefit. And as we move up through the upper levels, we're still going to find that these benefits are kind of the same, that risk reduction and and efficiency continue to be huge additional wins as we kind of move up through the next levels. So
So
you want to go
Tim,
to level two? Yeah.
before we get to level two, I just want to
Yeah.
mention what a lot of you might be wondering. Well, I think I'm actually level two because I have my spreadsheet,
Mm,
right? And my answer is this. No, we're going to get into what level two actually is because a lot of people who I'm going to use the Let's Encrypt analogy one more time. If you have a certificate that you are downloading from Let's Encrypt using an Acme agent, you are still having to probably write down that certificate and that usage of Acme somewhere in something like a spreadsheet or a database,
right.
meaning
Yep.
you have not yet achieved level two.
Sure. Because there's chance for human error, things get dropped, things get missed. There's also issues with, what happens when someone goes on vacation. Like anything that requires a human updating a spreadsheet doesn't count for our purposes.
So Tim, in using the vocabulary I'm trying to weave into this, in terms of a managed certificate, level one is not yet a fully managed certificate. In other words, a
Yeah.
Let's Encrypt certificate is not a fully managed certificate.
Gotcha, and I agree. All right, level two?
Level two, yes, sir.
Level two, here we go.
So again, bravo to those of you who have achieved level two. And level two, Tim, is all
Mhm.
about getting rid of that spreadsheet. It is now, you can utilize the certificate authority capability of logging into some place, some form of certificate lifecycle management capability where you can get an official list of the certificates that have been issued to you and look at several important factors, not the least of which is when does this certificate expire? And also, what is the cryptographic algorithm of the certificate, right? And other aspects that are important as we walk up the maturity model. But I think what is most important here is in order to be able to achieve level two, that certificate should be fully automated in every respect of all the granular points of automation that Tim talked about,
Yeah.
and also have the ability to completely not need a spreadsheet or a database to track the certificates because the certificate tracking is coming from some form of certificate lifecycle management system.
So level two, right, this is great. It's better than automation. In a way, this is still very elementary stuff though, right? Look what we're getting in level two. We're getting things like alerts and consistent policies. Like this is still very fundamental foundational capabilities to make your organization more just more robust. We're not necessarily talking about the real bells and whistles here. This is basic functionality that I think probably in their heart everybody wants.
Yeah, Tim, this is a place you want to get to at the very least is level two because in a moment of oh my goodness, I need to renew a lot of certificates.
Hmm.
If you have level one behind you and now you're at level two, you can start to say things such as, and Tim, this is one of my favorite sayings in CLM: you cannot manage what you don't know you have.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
if we use that, what is a managed certificate? A managed certificate is one where it has level one, is automated, automated renewals being an example. And then level two, you have this cert. And any person, even with not a lot of skills, can log it, through a disaster recovery document, can log into some official system and actually look at, all right, here are the certificates that have been issued to me. I know fully everything about those certificates. I know where they are. I know what domains are associated to. I know what cryptographic algorithms are associated with. I
Yeah.
know I know when they're going to expire, and I can expect to receive some sort of uh, of an alert, even if I'm not logged into those systems. And Tim, it's just there's so much benefit, and just think about the amount of management going on there that helps you to avoid all those outages we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good. Two things there. We talk about the outages, and that's like when to expire and that and what you mentioned. But you also touched on this other point, and it's also here on the slide, which is, are these certificates meeting the criteria that I have set for my organization? Right? Do I know if they're RSA or ECC? Do I know how big the keys are? Do I know what the term of my certificates are? Do I know what type or what CA I'm using in certain environments? Because organizations make decisions about this kind of thing. And it's if you make some choices about what you want your cryptography to be like, and you don't know if you're actually following those choices, then you're hamstrung from really executing on your policies. And so that's another big thing that we get when we move to the visibility level 2 is I get to understand that the policies I've selected are actually the things that are in place. Or if they're not, I can identify that and do something about it.
Tim, I want to foreshadow level 4, which is all about policies. And
Right,
in fact, having a full governance program and fully baked out policies is, in fact, what gets you to level
right.
4. But you're right. You can't get to level 4 unless
Yeah,
you are fully utilizing visibility, because you cannot manage what you don't know you have, and you can't write a policy against
right,
something you don't know you have.
right. And you're
Therefore,
touching
level,
another, yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Tim.
You're touching another good point here, Jason, which is, these are at these different levels because they do build on the previous level. Without automation, what we're talking about here at level 2 will make no sense. And you were kind of hinting when we get to level 4, without visibility, what's at level 2? Level 4 likewise is not possible. So each of these levels, in addition to bringing benefits, it enables the progression to the next level.
You got it, my friend. This is all about the maturity model of certificate lifecycle management, and it all
Right.
builds absolutely. Let's look at level
Let's
3.
progress to the next level. Okay, here we
Level
are.
level 3. I would say, Tim, we're now at the level where you can say
Yeah.
this certificate is a fully managed certificate.
Yes.
And I would say that a good certificate lifecycle management system immediately should get you to level 3. So that those are big statements, Tim.
Yep. Yep. I agree with you.
And
And
I think that, we've been talking about visibility at level 2, and I think that here's the important thing. Level 3 is another form of visibility. And in fact, it is an entirely a separate pillar of certificate lifecycle management.
yeah.
And folks, this is just the reality of it. A lot of outages are caused by certificates that you didn't even know you had.
Yes. So if every certificate is a ticking time bomb that is waiting to ruin your day, then ticking time bombs you don't know about are the scariest. And we see this all over the place because certificates are so foundational, they're so fundamental. Everybody learns about them in college. It's really easy for lots of people inside your organization to acquire and deploy certificates without bothering to tell anyone else. And this happens all the time. And they get something running and it's going great and everybody's happy. And there's a 1 year cert on it. And maybe even it's June 1 and I say, oh, note to self, deal with it next May. And May rolls around and I'm not thinking about it, or maybe I'm in another job entirely, and nobody knows that this time bomb is going to explode on June 1 until it's too late. And this happens
It
all the damn time.
it happens all the time. And in fact, I'm even going to go back to level 0 and level 1 for a moment, Tim, to talk
Yeah,
about those of you who might even have some form of certificate lifecycle management system. I know that some of you out there don't even have discovery as part of it. Therefore, it's
right.
not a full CLM.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
that's why we
Because,
bring this up as its own level. And it's an important one that incorporates the pillar of CLM that is discovery. And my goodness, folks, I have been in the room where an organization found out at the 11th hour and 12th hour, unfortunately, that there was a certificate used by some shadow IT organization, used by some, somebody just in their workday, a development person, an operations person. Hey, I need a cert. They went and got one, didn't
yep,
write it down in the spreadsheet, and then all of
yep,
a sudden, entire systems are going down.
yep, yep.
And so Tim, level 3 is really all about adding that discovery capability. So if you've fully automated your certificates, you have full visibility to the certificates, and you also have a discovery capability to make sure that level 2 is like not just level 2, but level 3. You can now say, Tim, I think at the end of level 3 that you are fully managing your certificates. And this is an incredibly important topic because you can't get to level 4 until you've gotten to this point. And I would say, and Tim, a little bit
Yeah.
of selling here, I have to sell a little bit.
Mm,
Sectigo SCM, Sectigo Certificate Lifecycle Management System, our flagship product. I think that Sectigo SCM, it immediately will get you to level 3 and allow you to say that your certificates are fully managed certificates.
yes, absolutely. All right. Level 4?
Level 4. And the reason why just having a CLM only gets you to level 3 and won't get you to level 4 is because level 4 is where you as an organization have your own homework.
Okay.
And that is level 3. If you get to level 3, you have everything you need to achieve level 4. You have
Yeah.
everything you need to build a governance program around your certificates. Now, Tim, you were talking earlier about policies. You were talking earlier about how that fits in to, you can now look through visibility, look
Yeah.
at the certificates themselves and make sure that they are complying with all of your policies. Tim, you're a compliance person. You probably have a lot to say about level 4.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Right. So, and this was kind of what I was hinting at when we went back to visibility level 2, right? Which is to say, if I want to sit here and I want to come up with a set of rules and guidelines that I feel really good about, that these are the things that are going to keep my organization secure, right? That this is going to give me the level of robustness and security and the things that I want, and compliance and interoperability. If I can't have a clear picture of what I have, I can't know it's true. But this is where level 3 also comes in, because what you were saying is, if the footprint that I'm looking at is a subset of the actual certificates that are existing in my environments, then once again, I can't really have actual governance, an actual process. I might tell myself I have governance, but it isn't true.
Tim, I
And yeah,
yeah. No, Tim.
please.
If you have, let's talk about privately trusted certificates for one moment. If you have a Kubernetes cluster that has a private certificate authority, that where the certificates have not been discovered inside
Hmm.
of a certificate lifecycle management system, your Kubernetes cluster has not achieved level 3.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
therefore, how in the world can you achieve a level 4 if
Yeah.
your Kubernetes cluster, which is running important infrastructure, is
Right.
not part of your governance program in level 4?
Absolutely. I'm gonna have all of these systems and processes that I pay all this attention to, and then I'm suddenly just gonna throw it into these ephemeral DevOps environments and not care a whit what's going on with the PKI over there, well, then you don't have governance. You don't.
Tim, I'm going to make one more comment about level 4, which flows directly into level 5, and that is this.
Okay.
Tim, if you're running an organization right now, and I ask you, Tim, present to me a list of all of your cryptographic assets, all of them.
Mm,
Would you be able to do that right now as an organization? And I would present that question to everybody listening to this
right.
webinar right now.
And I think the answer for most organizations is no.
And therefore, how do you achieve that? First of all, you have to have a cross-functional group come together, because not most organizations, even that are using publicly trusted certificates, Tim, they're using it across divisions within their organization. And therefore, people need to come together because you might be at different maturity levels. If you're all at level 3, hallelujah, you can probably get to level
Hmm.
4 fairly quickly. However, the difficulty is now we have to introduce private trust into this. And are all of your private trust people at least level 3?
Yeah.
Boy, that's tough to achieve. It's doable, but a lot of people aren't there yet. And Tim, this cross-functional coming together, there's a term used in the analyst community of cryptographic center of excellence.
Yeah.
And I would say that would be the pinnacle of level 4, where if you have a cryptographic center of excellence where you can answer me the question, deliver to me a foolproof guaranteed list of all the certificates you have in your organization
Right.
and all of your cryptographic assets, you are then ready to start tackling level 5. And level 5, Tim, I don't think anybody's there yet because
Hmm.
time hasn't progressed long enough. But Tim, let's look at level 5 and you'll see why that achieving level 4 is so important.
Sure. Level 5, crypto agility.
So Tim, everything we've talked about from level 1, 2, 3, and 4 is about certificate agility.
Yes.
And to me, having a full inventory of all your cryptographic assets is the first step in getting ready for level 5, which is, all right, now I can start prioritizing the systems that I'm going to need to change that are using legacy cryptographic algorithms, RSA and
Yeah.
DCC, and I can start prioritizing, all right, I have X, Y, and Z secrets where if they were decrypted in 3 to 5, 6, 7 years from now, I'm in a lot of trouble.
Hmm.
Being able to know which cryptographic assets you have and which secrets that you're transmitting with those cryptographic algorithms, that gets you to the stepping stone of being able to say, I'm getting ready to be a level 5 organization.
Yeah. And of course, there's a forcing function coming on this, right? Which I think we mentioned earlier in the slide deck, which is until I am truly crypto agile, how am I going to be quantum safe?
Uh, being quantum resistant and quantum
Yes.
safe will only be achieved when you are transmitting secrets with cryptographic algorithms that are
Yeah.
quantum safe. And those cryptographic algorithms have now been released by NIST. Hallelujah. And
Hmm.
there's going to be more in the future. And but it's going to take time. But my
Right.
argument is this, Tim. I think the most important thing to know about level 5 is until you've achieved level 1, 2, 3, and then have gone through the full governance thinking of level 4, you're nowhere near ready to start saying that you are crypto agile and that you have secrets that are safe and resistant from the era of quantum computers.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. And it's not just quantum computers, right? That's like the easy thing to discuss. But there, as you and I have talked about, we need to jettison the idea that 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 a whole generation of IT professionals have, that cryptography is static. We're walking around in an environment where we're using cryptographic algorithms that are older than most of us. And that will never be true again. You have to let that idea go. And this idea of I'm going to put some cryptography in place and it's literally going to run for my full tenure at a company, or it's going to run until that box is retired. Well, you have to let that go. That is not the world we are in anymore.
Tim, people might even forget that we have already had cryptographic primitives that we have used in the past that
Yeah,
have been deprecated. This
sure.
has precedent.
SHA-155. This is not new, right? Yeah,
And all that Tim is telling you guys in an extremely friendly way is that the cryptographic algorithms that you're spoiled with today, the beautiful RSA and ECC algorithms
yeah,
that we use right now, they're just so so tried and true. They will go away, and we will never be spoiled again by
yeah,
having such a low number of algorithms that just work so
yeah,
well
yeah.
that they have become utterly ubiquitous in our computing systems. The
Yeah.
the ability to change over to quantum resistant and quantum safe cryptographic algorithms is going to be a large lift. And that's everything from
Hmm.
your HSMs to your private certificate authorities to the usage of hybrid certificates to, my goodness, Tim, even publicly trusted certificates are
Oh yeah,
going to have to become quantum safe. It's going to be a large lift over a large number of years. And I'll tell you something,
yeah.
you got to achieve level 4, at least level 3,
Right.
folks. This is the point we're trying to make.
Yeah, and I like again this building thing, right? If we think about true crypto agility, and let's use quantum safe as our case study. That again, not the only one, but it's useful as a case study, right? How do I get there? Well, I can't get there without visibility. I can't get visibility without automation. I got to have visibility because I got to know what I have so I know if it's current or not, right? If I want to know what algorithms are in place. I need discovery because otherwise I'm going to miss the stuff that isn't in my snapshot but is in my environment. And that's going to be the way the bad guys can get in. I absolutely need governance, right? And process. I need to say, okay, we're going to migrate. This is how we're going to do it. This is what it's going to look like. These environments are going to have hybrid certs for this period of time. And we're going to phase them out. And we're going to move away from hybrid to true PQC at this kind of time frame. And all of that's going to be a plan, and it's going to require governance. And only with all of those other things are we capable of migrating to a post quantum cryptographic state.
Tim, I'd like to give a little bit of a good news story here, which is you can achieve level 3 quickly.
Yes.
And you can achieve level 3 quickly by merely buying the insurance. In other words,
No,
deploying certificate lifecycle
yeah,
management.
someone else did the hard work for you. You can benefit from that work.
You can get very quickly to level 3 and start working on your level 4 now.
Yeah,
And that will get you ready for level 5 when you need to be there. And I think that's the good news story, Tim.
that's a good story. I like that. So, next steps, Jay.
Yeah. So I think, and I love the way Tim put it, there are different organizations out there that are at different levels of maturity. And even within your organization,
Yeah.
you should start, once you've taken your inventory of certificates, you should start to look at, is this certificate itself at a level 0 or level 1 or level 2
Hmm.
certificate, right?
Yep.
Go right down even to the individual certificate level and assess what's the maturity model of the management of this certificate. And if you happen to be at a level 0 or a level 1 or a level 2, I think that it's time. It is absolutely time to start planning your roadmap to at least get to level 3.
Mhm.
And I think the easiest way to get to level 3 is to partner with experts and say, all right, what's the certificate lifecycle management system that I need to immediately get to level 3? And then what should I be doing as an organization to start building a level 4 for myself, for all of my certificates, so that the future doesn't look so darn scary? And I'll tell you, there are experts out there and tools out there that can help to get you there.
Great. Um, if you like this conversation, Jason and I obviously talk to each other a lot. We have a podcast called Root Causes, a PKI and Security podcast. We have more than 400 published episodes. We're publishing new episodes every week. And you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Come join us. We talk about topics like this. We talk about CLM, digital certificates, encryption, PQC, and really anything that touches on the world of digital identity, digital certificates. And we'd love to have you join us. And with that, I think we're ready for questions.
Yes. The first question is, what is the single most important thing to help mature my CLM?
Well, I think to Jason's point, you should skip the line and get to level 3, right? Get an expert outsider in to get you to level 3. Now 4 and 5, those, and we didn't really touch on this, those require some work. Those are about your organization. They're unique to you. We're looking at introspection. We're looking at education and knowledge. We're looking at organizations that have enough clarity and knowledge that they know how to make decisions and have governance. A lot of organizations don't have any governance around certificates at all. They just take what they're given. And so that's I'd say hard to short circuit in terms of what you do in level 4 and level 5. Get to level 3 and get comfortable with it and understand your tools and understand what's in your environment and understand how the rogue certificates are coming in and what you can do to bring them under your management. That's the way to start.
Okay, great. Second question is, how can I make a good case for the budget required for certificate management?
Oh. Look at the headlines and look at the outages. And when, somebody major like Bank of England goes down, you look at the or who all the people who've had outages, major outages in the last few years, Microsoft and LinkedIn and Nintendo and various banks. And when just say, okay, if we were down for a day, an hour, what would be the damage in terms of hard costs that we have, SLA failures or service failures? What would be the damage in terms of reputation? What would be the damage in terms of customer satisfaction or lost custom, lost business? And do the math. And what you're going to find is that the price tag for getting, again, at least to level 3 is so much smaller than the price tag of these problems. It's, again, we talk about insurance all the time, right? The reason that you have homeowners insurance is because your house might burn down. And if your house burns down, it's going to be really, really, really expensive. And so you spend a little bit of money to protect yourself against that contingency. And that's what you're doing here, right? And so I talked in the beginning about people who get it, who want to get automated, but they get trumped by these revenue generating opportunities. Well, if the revenue generating opportunity can't operate because you've got a certificate based outage, then it's not generating revenue. So if the right thinking IT person inside of your organization who understands this and wants to protect yourself from this risk want to sell it internally, I think that's how you talk about it. You talk about risk, you talk about disadvantages, you talk about the costs and the consequences of having systems not run. And you can fold in an efficiency message too. But I think it's harder to sell it on efficiency. I think the best way to make your management chain above you understand why this should be a prioritized project in terms of budget and roadmap is risk reduction.
Sounds good. And next question is, can you talk on discovery? Does discovery mean checking every port on every server for a certificate?
Jason,
Tim,
you
I,
want to take
I
a shot
think
at that
that,
one?
yeah, discovery, in fact, discovery means a lot of things. And
Yeah,
checking ports, the answer is yes. The answer is yes to all the above and a lot of other things too. And I think, Tim, that one of the slides we had talked about, talk to an expert. And I think that every organization has a unique footprint
yeah,
of places where discovery needs to happen. And here's my quick argument. A good certificate lifecycle management system should be able to look at all of those important places. And
right.
without getting into the full, we could have an entire webinar just on discovery, but a good CLM should discover in many places.
Right. So just like when we talked about with automation, to say this is a useful term, but it's also kind of a broad paintbrush term. And under that, you could have a lot more granularity if you're going to have a different degree of conversation about this. That is absolutely true about discovery as well, which is what you're getting at here, Jay, right? There's a lot of little nooks and crannies that certificates can hide in. And just from a technical perspective, the way that you find all of your public SSL certificates is very different from the way you find your DevOps CAs. It's very different from the way that you find your client certificates that identify your users. These all need to be like there's a different technical path to getting to all of them. But look for your CLM provider to provide you a path to all those things. Or some kind of expert advice to provide you a path to all those things. But they almost each get discovered individually, I would say, which doesn't mean they can't sit in the same dashboard, doesn't mean they can't have the same rules applied to them, doesn't mean that they can't be discovered by the same tool, but it does mean that the actual technical process of finding them varies a lot based on use case, environment, and certificate type.
Right. That is us through with all the questions. Thank you everyone for your time, and thanks Jason and Tim. If you've got any more questions, do get in touch with the
Yeah.
Sectigo team
We do
directly.
have an asset here. It's been sitting on the screen, but we didn't talk about it. If you want to
Yep.
come, go ahead. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, check out the asset. There's also a security CLM maturity calculator on there where you can figure out what level you're at. Good point, Tim. If you like this webinar, we have one coming up, our quarterly industry update webinar called Pulse at the end of October. So we'd love to see you there. You can sign up on our website. But yeah, for now, thank you and have a good rest of your day.